As a kid, there was no time I looked more forward to than summer. It meant no school, of course, but it also meant going back to my home village. I grew up there, but once I got into second grade, my parents moved to the city. I didn't hate it, but it was so different. For a kid, a village is a fantastic place. The vast, grassy plains, the deep forests, the mountains, and of course, the cornfields. It was a whole different world. Each year, we spent the warm summer months there. My parents had, of course, sold our old home, but now owned a small cabin nearby. I was always excited to go back, and couldn't wait to hear about all the things that had happened. In a city, change is ever present. In a village, however, even the small things really mattered. I guess what I want to say is that those summer months were special to me. That was, until I was in 6th grade. That year changed everything. Once we'd arrived and settled in, I set out on my bike to meet up with my 2 best friends, Mark and Tom. I couldn't wait to hear all their stories. I found them at the soccer field, as always. After we'd said our greetings, I started to ask them right away what I'd missed. There was the crazy bull at old Werner's farm that had caused a whole lot of trouble. Miss Richter had burned down half her house due to a faulty fuse. And I'd missed the big soccer match between all the 6th and 7th graders. I had just passed the ball to Tom when he stopped and turned to me. "Oh yeah, there was that terrible thunderstorm a couple weeks ago. It even messed up that old man's greenhouse." "What old man?" "The evil old man," Mark chimed in. I looked from Mark to Tom. "Wait, who are you guys talking about?" "That old rich dude who moved here," Tom began. "He built this giant mansion." He put all his emphasis on the word giant and held out his arms to show just how big it was. "Yeah, but the greenhouse is even bigger," Mark exclaimed. "Mansion? Greenhouse?" The 2 of them nodded as if that was enough to explain it. "You should have seen the construction. They had all those cranes and bulldozers. They were huge." Tom held his arms out again. He always did that. Mark, standing next to him, nodded in excitement. "It took months." I rolled my eyes. I didn't get what the big deal was. I saw cranes and bulldozers every day on my way to school. "Why is he evil?" I asked, suddenly remembering Mark's remark. They both eyed me and came closer, answering me in hushed voices. "It's because he's hiding something. Ever since his greenhouse was damaged, he's sneaking around the place. He's keeping watch. All day, every day," Mark started. "Yeah, and Christopher Siegert said the old man's performing weird rituals inside the greenhouse. He said he saw it through one of the broken windows," Tom went on. I listened as they rambled on, but didn't understand half of it. Christopher Siegert? Broken windows? My parents said they heard some weird stuff. It screams inside there one night, Mark said, turning to Tom. "Yeah, and those dark cars that go in there? They must be secret agents or something," Tom replied. "Guys, hold on, slow down. I've got no idea what you're talking about." I cut them both off. For a second, they both stared at me as if they'd forgotten I was even there. Tom's face lit up in an instant. "You want to go see it?" Moments later, we were on our way to a small hill in the center of the village. It was from there that I first saw the mansion and the greenhouse next to it. I could also see a scaffold set up on one side of it. On the way, they reiterated all the stories and urban legends. There were probably as many of those as people who lived in the village. The mansion itself was a big, fancy place, but it was nothing compared to the massive greenhouse next to it. "See? I told you! You can't see anything," Mark exclaimed. "Yeah, fine, whatever," I said, annoyed. I had questioned them over and over again about what was really going on inside. All they said was that no one was able to look inside. I hadn't believed them. I was sure it was nothing but a dumb trick to surprise me. Now I saw that they were right. The glass was milky and blurred, making it impossible to see anything. So, no one has any idea what's going on inside? They both nodded. I bet it's dinosaurs, someone called out from behind. The moment I turned around, I saw it was Eric, one of the younger kids in the village. His friend Rick was right behind him, as always. Don't be stupid, Eric. Dinosaurs are all dead, Mark said to the little boy with a smile on his face. Maybe they're doing some sort of genetic experiment, Rick mumbled, more to himself than to us. Yeah, right, idiot, Tom yelled at him. Rick was quiet in an instant. He shuffled around awkwardly and stared at his feet. It was no secret that no one really liked him except for Eric. I bet it's his personal zoo. He's probably keeping tigers, lions, and rhinos in there, Tom went on. The others all stared at him, excited at the prospect of having a zoo in the village. Maybe it's just a dumb old greenhouse. We got something like that. There's no way. Tom yelled at me and stared me down as if I'd insulted him. Why can't we see inside then? I raised my hands to calm them down. All right. Sorry, guys, but why has no one taken a look or asked him about it? You can't do that, Eric exclaimed. We told you. He's evil, Mark called out. He's creepy, always trying to do something if we get too close. Especially now, since that storm damaged some of the glass panes. As I listened to Mark, I let my eyes wander over the mansion and the greenhouse below. I could also make out a scaffold on one side, most likely erected to repair the damage they told me about. We were still so far away from it, though. Why can't we get closer? We'd get beaten up like Philip Mueller, Tom said. Who's that now? He's from the next village over. He heard about the broken window panes right after it happened and tried to sneak in. Did he make it? I asked. Tom shook his head. He got beaten up by that old man real bad, little Eric started. I heard he can't ever walk again. Shut up, Eric, Mark yelled at him. It's true, Eric protested. I heard he beat the living hell out of him and chased him all the way to the cornfields. Oh yeah? If he couldn't walk anymore, how was he able to get to the cornfields? Mark asked, smiling at him triumphantly. I don't know, but it's true, Mark, Eric said in a low voice. I heard it too, Rick started, but one look by Mark shut him up right away again. You're all exaggerating, I interrupted their argument. He's always watching, though, Tom said as he looked down at the mansion. I bet he's even watching us right now. I always take the long way home now, so I don't have to go by his place anymore, Eric admitted. He was obviously more than a bit embarrassed by the fact. That's because you're a baby, Mark said, laughing. The two of them had never gotten along. Mark was the type who enjoyed making fun of the younger kids. I liked him a lot, but at times he gave Eric a bit too hard of a time. He really is scary, though, Tom said, while he still watched the mansion apprehensively. The rest soon agreed. After a while, we left the hill and went back to the soccer field. As much as I tried to convince them to sneak up on the place, they all seemed to be truly scared of the old man. It was in the early evening that I decided to head towards the place on my own. The mansion had been built on a vast empty plain next to the road connecting the lower and upper part of the village. It was this road that Eric had talked about before. As I drove up to the mansion, I was still sure they were all exaggerating. I was surprised when I noticed an older man watching me from a bench at the edge of his property. The moment I stopped to look around, he got up and took a few steps toward me. He stared me down with an angry expression on his face. Get the hell out of here, kid, he yelled over at me. Or do I have to make you? With that, he started to walk toward me with hard, quick steps. I thought about trying my luck, but his eyes and the expression on his face made me drive off after all. Over the next couple of days, we saw the old man often. Whenever we drove by his place, he'd yell at us from afar to get a move on. At one point, we could see a giant, angry dog at his side. The beast started to bark like crazy the moment it saw us. Some of the others pedaled their bikes faster, yelling at me that he was about to let the dog go. A few days later, we were building a small hideout in the woods. It wasn't long before I started to talk about sneaking up on the old greenhouse again. "There's no way," Tom said, as he was trying to break a thick branch of a tree. "You saw his dog, didn't you?" "I know, but maybe if we sneak up from behind and—" "He's gonna get you," Tom said, cutting me off. Mark didn't say anything. He was too busy going through a toolbox from his dad's workshop. "He can't watch all the time, guys." I tried once more. "But he does," Tom said, while pushing his whole weight against the branch. "Why is this not coming off?" he yelled and started to kick against it. "Stupid piece of—" he went on. "Guys, I'm pretty sure I can make it," I said in an optimistic voice. "Back in the city, Shut up," Mark yelled at me while still looking over his tools. "Stop talking about that old dude all the time. It's getting annoying." "It's only annoying because you're afraid of him," I yelled back. "So what?" Mark got up, giving me the stink eye. "You've only been here for a few days. He's been after us constantly for weeks. He even chased me with that dog of his. It almost got me one time, you know?" I murmured an apology. "I just want to know what's inside," I said in a low voice. "We all want to know. We tried everything. There's no way we can get any closer." We'll see about that," I said. They all gave me a hopeless look, but left it at that. The next morning, I decided to prove that I meant what I'd said. I decided I would sneak into the place on my own. It would be easy, I told myself. First, I'd have to get close to the greenhouse. From there, I'd rush towards the scaffold, hide behind the tarp surrounding it, and sneak inside. I believed everyone's stories, of course, and I'd seen that giant dog. Still, I was confident that the old man wouldn't be able to catch me. I was a fast kid. I set out on foot right after breakfast. I didn't follow the road towards the mansion. Instead, I made my way through the grass in the direction of his greenhouse. That way, the massive glass construction and the high grass would both hide me from his view. Everything went well, and I was soon only meters away from the greenhouse. The moment I got up and was about to hurry towards the scaffold, though, I heard something. It was the loud barking of a dog nearby. I'd barely taken a few steps when I saw the old man coming towards me with his dog on a leash. "Don't even think about running, boy." I froze. "What the hell do you think you're doing here?" he demanded. "I'm just—" "Shut up, boy. I've seen you around. You're not one of those local boys, are you?" I stayed quiet. All I could do was stare at the angry dog by his side and look at its bared teeth. "I asked you a goddamn question!" He screamed at me and took a few steps closer. The dog at his side started to growl in anticipation and struggled against the leash, holding it back. I tried to speak, but couldn't. Fear welled up inside me, and I had to take a few short breaths before I was able to answer. "I'm staying at a cabin with my parents," I brought out in a low, shaky voice. "I'm not here to cause any trouble, sir," I added quickly. I was just trying to—" I didn't get to finish the sentence as the old man suddenly gave the dog more leash. The giant beast came rushing towards me, jaws wide open and saliva flying from its mouth. I stumbled back a step, but lost my footing and fell to the ground. With each passing moment, the beast came closer. I could already feel the jaws closing around my arm or leg. I screamed as the animal lunged toward me and felt something hot and wet between my legs. Just before the beast was upon me, the old man jerked the leash backward, and it came to a stop only inches away from me. I sat on the ground, shaking, crying, unable to move. That dog was still right in front of me, barking and growling. Its saliva sprayed onto my legs, and in a panic, I inched away from it. "Get lost, boy," The old man screamed at me once more. "Next time, there'll be no more leash." With that, he pulled the dog back to his side. He kept staring at me until I got up and started to walk away on shaky legs. "I wouldn't be the first boy that happened to," he yelled after me, laughing. Looking back on that as an adult, I'm sure he'd said it only to scare me. But 13-year-old me absolutely believed him. I hurried straight back to our cabin. For the rest of the day, I stayed holed up in there. I was so afraid I didn't even want to go outside. The image of that dog came back to me again and again. Even in my dreams, I was chased by the giant beast. Now I knew why Mark was so afraid. It was 3 whole days after that encounter that I finally went out on my bike again. I was still a bit anxious, but I made my way to the soccer field. "Wow, there he is," I heard Tom exclaim when he saw me. "Where the hell have you been?" For a moment, I stayed quiet, but then I told them what had happened. "See? We told you so," Mark said. He was the only one who didn't seem to feel sorry for me, all because I disregarded his warning. Sometimes I couldn't stand his attitude. "I bet it's true. He probably got other kids before," Eric said out loud. "Yeah, I bet it is," Tom agreed. "Yeah, but I'm not giving up," I said finally. The others looked at me in confusion. "What are you talking about? Do you want to get killed for real?" It was Mark, who seemed to be seriously angry now. "I have to find out what's in there," I answered. "Yeah, but that old dude's going to get you for real this time," Tom said. "There has to be some way to trick him. You're going to get eaten by his dog," Eric chimed in. "Oh yeah? I can't watch the place all day, can he?" "But he's always out there. You know that." It was Mark who didn't seem to let it go. "I know, Mark. But if he's out there all day, then what about the night?" The others looked at me, puzzled. "What do you mean?" Tom asked. "I mean, is he out there at night, too?" "I'm sure he is." "How'd you know, Mark? Have you ever been there at night?" "Of course not. Why would I do that?" "See? He's probably doing worse things at night," Eric said in a low voice. "Shut up, Eric. Give him a break, Mark. Stop being mean to him," I intervened. "Maybe he's letting the dinosaurs he keeps inside roam around the house," Eric continued. "That's stupid." Mark wouldn't leave Eric be. I honestly had no idea what sort of problem he had with the boy. "He has to sleep, though," I said. "You don't know that. Maybe he doesn't sleep," Tom cut in. "What? No, everyone has to sleep. Also, he won't be able to see us during the night," I continued. "We'd probably be able to sneak in way easier after dark. And get eaten by his dog." "Shut up, Mark," I yelled at him, fed up with his constant interruptions. "Whatever. I really want to know what's inside, too," Tom finally said. I nodded. Soon enough, Tom said he'd come along if I went back there during the night. The moment the two of us started to make plans, Mark grudgingly agreed as well, if only to see what would happen to us. Convincing Eric was even easier. That kid seemed to be the most excited out of all of us. We spent a lot of days planning our night approach. In the end, it wasn't just me, Tom, Mark, and Eric. Apparently Eric had also shared our plans with Rick, who wanted to tag along as well. We were all furious. When Rick arrived one day to learn about our plan, we told him to get lost. The problem was, however, that he said he'd tell on us if we didn't allow him to join us. So, in the end, there wasn't much we could do. We decided on a Thursday night. We reasoned that the old man might stay up late on the weekends, so we probably had a better chance on a weekday. Getting out at night wasn't tough for me. I'd done it countless times before to explore the village and the cornfields at night. My parents had never found out a thing. My friends simply told their parents they were staying over at each other's houses. I was surprised it worked. "Eagle 4 has landed," I said quietly when I met up with Tom and Mark. They gave me a prearranged hand sign to show they'd noticed me. We decided to meet up at the edge of the village sometime after midnight. I was really surprised to see Eric. He was a good 2 years younger than us, so I'd had my doubts that he'd be able to sneak out by himself. He was a crafty little guy, though. The last one to arrive was Rick, a solid quarter hour after everyone else. To be honest, I was more annoyed that he actually came, and not the fact that he was late. We planned to set out on foot in 2 different teams, and meet up in the grassy plain near the greenhouse. One group consisted of Mark and Tom. I was stuck with Eric and Rick. We felt like spies or secret agents as we sneaked around corners and rushed from one building to the next. We rushed through the grass and hid between bushes and behind trees as we went on our way. I'm sure we must have looked absolutely ridiculous. It was pure dumb luck that no one saw us. I'm pretty sure we'd have been safer if we just walked down the street the regular way. Everyone was nervous and scared, but also excited beyond belief. The only one who didn't seem to care was Rick. He was annoying and whined constantly about having to sneak around. I had to tell him multiple times to be quiet, but then he'd just start complaining again after a while. When we finally arrived near the mansion, Tom and Mark were already there, waiting for us. "What took you so long?" Mark asked in a hushed whisper. I only had to take a sideways glance at Rick, and he knew. "Well, it's not my fault," Rick complained, not bothering to lower his voice at all. We all looked up in shock, and for a moment, we were all sure the old man must have heard us. "Quiet," I said. "He'll find us." Rick was about to complain again, but then Mark went up to him and pushed him to the ground. He didn't say a word and simply stared down at him in anger. This time, Rick finally seemed to get the message. I looked at the mansion. The windows were still dark, and everything was completely and utterly quiet. There was also no sign of the giant dog anywhere. We waited for another couple minutes, listening for any and all sounds. When nothing happened, I finally made the hand sign for clear, and we carefully inched closer. As we made our way through the high grass, we were all serious. Everyone, even Rick, tried to be as quiet as possible. Just one wrong noise would mean that old man would come for us with his dog, and we had no idea what he might do if he found us out here in the middle of the night. We inched forward, one by one, each taking only a step at a time. It was a slow process. Every noise we heard made us freeze in fear. Finally, we made it, and were standing next to the greenhouse. It really was massive. It must have been at least 20 meters wide, and probably twice as long. By now, we had to be quick. We might have been hidden from gazes inside the mansion, but we weren't protected by the darkness anymore. Even long past midnight, the lights inside the greenhouse were still glowing. We hurried towards the damaged area, and moments later, we vanished beneath the scaffold's tarpaulin. From here, we could make out the damaged glass panes and the repairs that were still being carried out. We never even considered that the repairs might have already been finished. It was pure luck that 2 of the large glass panes were still missing. The hole was covered by another thick layer of tarpaulin. It was stretched over the metal framing to keep the greenhouse closed off. We tried to pull it off, but it seemed to be connected to the metal framing. Whatever we tried, there was no way to pull it off. "What do we do now?" I whispered. Everyone shrugged, a dire look on their faces. Except for Mark, who grinned. Within moments, he pulled out a pocket knife and went forward. He rammed the knife into the heavy fabric and started to pull it downwards. It was tough and almost took him a full minute, but finally, there was a hole big enough for us to enter. The inside of the greenhouse was absolutely astonishing. In an instant, the darkness of the night was replaced, and we found ourselves in a tropical jungle. The heat inside was almost unbearable. It had to be far above 30 degrees Celsius, and the air was heavy with moisture. For what had to be minutes, we just stood there, looking at the lush vegetation all around us. Tropical trees rose high into the air, while thick vines entangled them. The ground was a mixture of various underbrush and strange exotic flowers. Suddenly, we heard a rustling in front of us. I cringed back instinctively, expecting a tiger, panther, or hell, even a freaking dinosaur to jump us. Instead, it was a small animal, looking like a chipmunk or squirrel that rushed away as quickly as it saw us. I laughed a little as relief flushed over me. As we finally started walking again, it seemed as if the whole place was alive. There were many different birds in here. Some were parrots, others were birds of paradise. "Do you guys think there are any real dinosaurs in here?" Eric asked excitedly. No one was able to answer him. We were all too overwhelmed by this new, completely different world all around us. Secretly, though, I think we all hoped to actually see a real dinosaur, even if no one wanted to admit it. As we began exploring, we soon found a little stream and, right next to it, a small path. It seemed to lead us around the whole place in a circle. "Did you see anything other than birds and squirrels?" Mark asked me. I shook my head. "Let's keep searching," Tom said. With that, we continued and followed the small path. For a while, we were still careful and tried to stay hidden between bushes and behind trees. Soon enough, though, we realized there was no real danger here. As we started on our second round through the place, we'd seen nothing but birds and other small animals. "This is so boring," Rick started to complain again. He went over to a pile of stones placed next to the path and sat down right there in the open. After a little while, Eric followed him, and soon enough, Mark and I joined them. Tom was still on his way, exploring. I was quite disappointed, to be honest. The place was amazing, no doubt, but my initial astonishment was long gone. I'd been looking for an adventure, for hidden secrets, and, I hate to admit it, dinosaurs. As beautiful as this place was, it was just plain boring. "There has to be something here," Mark said after a while. "Otherwise he wouldn't watch it all the time." "Maybe he just likes scaring people," I said, shrugging my shoulders. "What do we do now?" Eric asked. "I'm going home," Rick mumbled and got up. Before he'd barely taken a few steps, Tom came back to us. You guys, I found something." "Is it a dinosaur?" Eric called out. "A tiger?" Mark piped up. "Some sort of secret hideout?" I asked. We were all excited again. Tom seemed to be a little embarrassed by all the attention he was getting. "Well, no, but there is some sort of building over there." As we moved forward, we had to fight through the underbrush to make it to the center of the greenhouse. It was there that Tom had found the building. By now, we were all happily chatting with each other. The danger the place had held had evaporated entirely, and the old man had all but vanished from our minds. "A building? That sounds dumb," Rick moaned. It was at this point that Mark stopped and stared at him. "Will you shut up for once?" he yelled at him. Rick stopped talking right away and did his best to look away from Mark. "Is that it?" I asked Tom when I saw a rectangular concrete block in front of us. Tom simply nodded. I was disappointed once more. I'd hoped it might be some sort of secret hideout, but it seemed to be nothing but a giant concrete block. It didn't even have a door or windows. The only visible thing was some sort of console on its side. Maybe it was nothing but the freaking generator that powered this place. I'd seen similar things in the city. I was about to take a step forward and take a closer look at the console when I heard something. It was a door opening and then shutting again. We knew instantly what this meant. "He's coming for us," Eric blurted out before he covered his mouth in shock. As quickly as we could, we hid between the various plants and bushes, hoping he wouldn't find us. I knew there could only be one reason for him to be out here in the middle of the night. He knew we'd sneaked inside. With each passing second, I anticipated seeing him with that giant dog and sicking the beast on each of us. For a moment, the memory of the dog's fangs returned, and I started shaking in sheer panic. Was this why he'd created this place? To lure kids here to hunt us down? I listened, breathing heavily as the echo of his footsteps came closer and closer. My heart beat heavy inside my chest. I told myself desperately to calm down, afraid that my heartbeat alone would give me away. The moment I saw him, though, all those thoughts vanished into thin air. There was no hint of the dog. Instead, he was all by himself. That wasn't all, though. His attire was completely different, and utterly strange. He wasn't wearing his usual farming clothes, but instead wore a sort of lab coat. In his hands, he held a variety of odd items: syringes, surgical tools, and other things. What made the whole thing even stranger was that the old man was smiling. Without even looking around or searching for us, he stepped up to the concrete building. It was clear to me in an instant that he wasn't here because of us. He probably had no idea we were here at all. So then, what was he doing out here? My question was answered when he stepped up to the console on its side. He put down the assortment of items and tools he'd brought and took out a key. He inserted it in the console, then seemed to press a few of the buttons. A second later, one of the walls of the building vanished into the ground, revealing 3 big holding cells. No, I realized. Cages. I watched with wide eyes. He stepped up to the first of them and took out a small device. He pressed down on a button, and moments later, the cage opened. His face was distorted by an unnaturally wide grin, and he was beaming with happiness. "Oh, my dear, it's been quite a while, hasn't it? You must have been so lonely," he said, in a voice filled with pure excitement, and not just a bit of malice. I leaned forward in anticipation to see what was inside the cage. Then, we all heard the sounds. At first, it was nothing but a moaning, but it soon turned into a sort of low scream. I could hear something moving, and soon the clatter of metal. I was terrified. "Now then, why don't you come outside? Or do I have to make you?" he called into the cage. It wasn't long before something stepped outside. I don't know why or how, but I knew instantly that that creature was no normal animal. Something was very wrong with it. Its shoulders, upper arms, and legs were covered in fur. The rest, however, was hairless. For a moment, it reminded me of a human being, but there were too many things wrong with it to justify such a comparison. As the thing moved, I saw that its arms and legs were weirdly twisted, as if the joints were put together the wrong way around. The body looked scrawny yet muscular. The worst thing about it, though, was the face. There was no visible nose. The mouth was nothing but a dark, empty hole with no discernible teeth. The eyes were deep-set, bloodshot, and endlessly tired. A deep sadness seemed to emanate from it. The closest way to describe the creature would be to call it a deformed, mostly hairless ape. As the creature stepped toward the old man, I saw the shackles around its legs, and the chains connected to them. Once more, it made a sound that could have almost been called human. I got shivers all over my body when I heard it. The creature dragged itself forward, moving slowly. A moment later, however, it rushed the old man. I saw it jump him, but then it was yanked back by the chains and stopped a meter in front of him. For a moment, the smile on the old man's face vanished. It was replaced by that expression of pure anger. Then the smile returned, but this time, it was different. There was no happiness in it. There was only pure malice. Once more, he took out the small device I'd seen and pressed down on the button again. The creature screamed in pain and started twitching and writhing. "One would have thought you'd learned by now, my dear," he said, laughing. The way he said that last word made me feel sick to my stomach. He stepped up closer to the creature, putting his foot on its head. For a moment, he pressed down hard with a sardonic grin on his face. The thing opened its mouth, but all that escaped was a soft, painful moan. "That's what you get for not behaving," the old man said, before finally taking his foot away. I saw the eyes of the creature look up at him. They were filled with anger, but they also seemed to be pleading with him. Another sound escaped the ravaged mouth. It was a long and dragged-out scream. To this day, that sound is one of the creepiest and saddest things I've ever heard. It was so close to that of a human, yet so different. I almost gasped when I heard it, but quickly covered my mouth. Eric, who was only a few meters to my right, was too shocked to do so, and a short, high-pitched scream escaped his mouth. In an instant, the old man jerked around, his face distorted by tremendous anger. When he saw the little boy trying to hide between the bushes, he was upon him in an instant. "How dare you!" he pressed out, his face almost purple with anger. "Hey, you little shit!" he screamed at Eric. The little boy was too scared to run or do anything, and in a moment, the old man pulled him out into the open. "What the hell are you doing here? How the hell did you get in?" When Eric didn't say anything, the old man began throttling him. I watched, got up on shaky legs, but I didn't know what to do. Right about then, Mark of all people rushed forward. Soon after, Tom and I followed him. Only Rick stayed back, not taking more than a few steps. The old man's expression turned to surprise when more kids came running toward him. "Let go of him!" Mark screamed. Moments later, we were all upon him, trying to pull him off of Eric. The old man was in such a rage now that he didn't even seem to notice our efforts, and continued to hang on to our friend. It must have taken us half a minute to push him off. "Run, Eric!" Mark screamed at the little boy, but Eric wasn't moving. "Come on, Eric, get up!" I said as tears started streaming down my face. When Tom and I tried to pull him up, his whole body felt wrong, and his head dangled at a weird angle. Then, my friends, the old man and I, all looked up as the creature behind us screamed again. It was a scream of triumph and excitement. When I turned around and saw it closer up, I realized that the creature had to be a female. Then, I saw them. The shackles. They were lying on the ground next to the creature. When the old man saw what had happened, his face changed to a visage of pure terror. He held up his hands, but noticed he wasn't holding the small device anymore. He must have dropped it when we charged him. "Where the hell did it go, damn it?" He was out of it. He fell to his knees, desperately searching and rummaging through the lower vegetation all around him. A second later, he picked something up, but all the color had drained from his face when he saw that the small device was completely crushed. He didn't get to lament or curse, because right then, the she-beast was upon him. A blood-curdling scream cut through the air before the beast opened its mouth impossibly wide and closed it around the old man's throat. His face changed to sheer and utter terror as he started clawing at the thing, but his attempts were futile. The beast's jaws pressed down harder and harder on the old man's neck. There was a disgusting, wet sound of something breaking, followed by a gurgling as his body went limp. The beast released the crushed neck and, a moment later, raised its arms high into the air before it brought its fists down on the old man's head. I heard the crunching of bones, and blood splattered all over the vegetation all around. Over and over, the thing beat down on the old man's body. When I could finally rip my eyes away from that sight, a new horror awaited me. The other two cages, they had opened up as well when the device was destroyed. Two more creatures emerged soon after. They were different, more deformed and horrible than the she-beast. Yet they too showed the same similarities to human beings, but they were pitiful and nightmarish caricatures. One's body was so twisted that it had to crawl out, dragging its lower appendages behind. One look at its head made me shudder. Where the face was supposed to be, there was nothing but scar tissue and a gaping maw. The other creature was much larger and overtook the crawler in an instant. It was walking on its four appendages. They were long and bony, while the rest of its body was thick and bloated. It gave the thing the appearance of a four-legged humanoid spider. Pure terror fell upon us when we saw the other creatures. Rick was the worst. He was in utter hysterics, screaming louder and louder as he rocked back and forth on the floor. Suddenly, the she-beast stopped beating the remains of the old man, and in an instant, she jumped towards Rick. The creature grabbed hold of his shoulders. It let out a bellowing scream. I just stood there, unable to move at all. I saw the spider beast tumbling towards me. For a moment, its empty eyes stared at me before it noticed Eric's lifeless body. It went closer, and I saw its jaw unhinge. There was no sound of chewing or flesh tearing. It was devouring him whole. It was Mark that finally took me out of my trance as he crashed into me. He screamed at me, but it was all incoherent. It made no sense. Then he started to pull me into the jungle around us, and soon we were both running. I saw Tom next to us as well. Tears were streaming from my face. My vision was blurry, and I had no idea where I was going. I stumbled after them before I suddenly crashed into the glass panes of the greenhouse. We looked around, but there was no sign of the entrance anywhere. For all I knew, we were completely trapped. Suddenly, another scream of the she-beast cut through the air. It was followed by the sounds of it tearing through the vegetation of the greenhouse. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. But then, in sheer and utter desperation, I threw myself against the glass. Again and again I did it, but it was much sturdier than I'd expected. Then Tom threw a heavy stone against the glass. It didn't break, but there was a small crack. Each one of us picked up whatever we could find close to us and threw it against the glass pane. The sound of glass breaking was mixed with the sound of the she-beast bursting from the jungle behind us. I threw myself forward. The sharp edges of the glass scraped along my arms, leaving long, gushing cuts behind, but I didn't even feel it. I was out first, followed by Mark. "Tom, we gotta..." I started, but Tom's screams cut me off. They lasted for no more than a few seconds. Mark and I didn't look back. We simply ran. And once we couldn't run anymore, we stumbled forward until we were back in the village. What happened next is a blur. The village erupted into chaos when they found us. We were both bloody from the glass, screaming and crying. We rambled on and on about the old man, the greenhouse, the monsters, and our friends. When the police arrived, they found the corpses of the old man, Rick, and Tom, as well as one of the creatures inside the greenhouse. Eric's body, however, was never found. I spent the rest of the summer either answering questions or at the office of a therapist. Of course, they didn't tell us anything. We were kids, after all. The story itself made the local news, but it was quickly and discreetly swept under the carpet. It was years later that I finally put the official story together from bits and pieces. The she-beast was deemed a female gorilla. The authorities caught it a few days later in a nearby forest, and safely disposed of it. The other creature that they'd found in the greenhouse was an adolescent one, they said. The old man must have acquired them illegally and kept them as pets in the greenhouse. The night we entered, the two animals got loose due to our fight with the old man, and in the rampage that followed, everyone but Mark and I were killed. In the month after it happened, both the mansion and the greenhouse were locked from the public. Important people came and went before the place was stripped and eventually abandoned. It still stands even now, a grisly reminder of what happened that night. I needed therapy for years. Even to this day, my dreams are haunted by the creatures I saw that night. My therapist keeps reminding me that things like those creatures couldn't exist. It had most likely been my fear that had transformed the gorillas into the nightmarish things I saw. Here's the thing, though. The official stories only ever talked about two of the creatures, the she-beast and the crawling one that died inside the greenhouse. The third one, the one that had devoured Eric's body, was never mentioned. For years, I've looked up news about my home area. There are the occasional reports about livestock being killed and half-devoured remains of animals. The official stories blame it on wolves or other wild animals. Yet, I can't help but wonder, it's been 2 decades, but what if that third thing is still out there even now? Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed today's story. This one was written by one of my favorite authors, Rene Rehn. If you enjoyed this story, I'd highly encourage you to check out Ren's website. It's called renwriter.com, and he's got links there to all of his books. He's got several books out. The First Few Times Always Hurt is a short story anthology. He's also got a book out called Miller's Academy. A few of the other books, Unsettling Truths, Fuck Monsters, which is the Monster Hunter series that I did on the channel here. He's also got a novel on there titled New Haven, which is a slow burn horror mystery novel about faith, deception, and the dangerous secrets within the heart of a small, isolated community. So yeah, highly encourage you to check out Ren's work on Reddit as well. He's Ren Writer on Reddit. Very accomplished author and one of my personal favorites. I thought this story in particular was really good. I like these childhood adventure type stories. It kind of reminds me of The Stand or the novella that was based on The Body by Stephen King. Any of these sort of stories where there's a group of kids, a group of teens who have to sort of investigate some sort of mystery or go on some sort of adventure. I'm always down for that sort of story. So I'd like to do more of these stories on the channel if we can find them. It's always a challenge finding really interesting, really good stories. But I thought this one turned out really well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. I'll have a new story coming out this Friday as well, and I'll continue posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as well as some additional bonus content on Patreon and in the member section here. So hopefully you guys will all check that out. And yeah, that's about all I have for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you again on Friday. All right. Hope you have a great day.